everyone, Kathy the Vegan Prepper here, and today I'm going to be taking you along the process of dehydrating some leftover chili. Let's go ahead and get right into it. Vegan Prepper. Vegan Prepper. The recipe that I'm using, or that I did use for this chili last night, is already on the channel, and I will link it down below that recipe video so that you can get it for yourself. This, though, is just the process of dehydrating the finished recipe. This recipe and recipes like it, which are completely oil-free and also vegan, are really completely ideal for dehydration. Honestly, dehydration is an amazing form of food preservation. But one of the things that can make things not last as long when you dehydrate, or honestly even freeze dry, many other forms of food preservation, is fat. It just goes rancid. It will make things not last as long. So recipes like this one are actually really great to dehydrate for some long-term food storage. I am planning on taking what I make here and throwing it into my 72-hour bucket. And yeah, let's go ahead and just get right into the actual procedure. Here is a dish of the finished chili. When I make it, I do make it in a saucepan, but it is currently in this because I pour it into the 9x13 dish to help it cool down faster so that I can get it into the fridge. And so that's why it's in this dish, but it is a stovetop recipe, like in a big saucepan typically. So I'm just going to actually use my Nesco dehydrator today. I have my fruit leather trays all washed and ready to go. I did not dry them because they're about to go into the dehydrator and they're going to get dry there. I can't tell you how many years I was doing this before it suddenly hit me that I don't really have to dry my trays when I do stuff like this. Certain things you kind of probably would want to, but for this, you absolutely don't have to dry your tray first. So basically what I'm going to do is use a measuring cup. And so I have just like a 1 cup measuring cup here. And typically I do anywhere from 2 to 3 cups on each tray. We'll see what fits and what looks good. With kind of thicker stuff like this, you can often get away with putting a little bit more, but I still like to spread it out nice and thin. And then I'll show you something else I like to do to make things dehydrate a little faster. But let me go ahead and get the other cup on this tray first. All right, so I think I am gonna go ahead and stick with only 2 cups per tray. And so basically what I like to do is spread it pretty thin, but not just thin. I like to kind of open it up like you see me doing here. I like to leave like airspace so that it really will dehydrate well, because the tray itself is solid, so we're not going to get any air coming up from underneath. I like to make sure that I'm leaving plenty of space on top. That way you don't end up with like part of the tray getting, you know, super dry, and then the other part is still kind of wet because it had too big of a pile. So I'm going to go ahead and get this to where I like it and finish up the rest of the trays and get those into the dehydrator. All right, I got 4 trays of 2 cups each, but I did have a little less than 1 cup left over. And so rather than doing a 5th tray with such a small amount, I'm gonna go ahead and just sort of redistribute this amongst the other trays so that each tray will really be getting closer to 2 1/4 cups. But still, I think that that's a perfectly reasonable portion for an adult. Once it's rehydrated, that makes a single meal. And so along with, you know, whatever else you'd like to add to it. So I'm gonna go ahead and redistribute that across these trays and then get them in the dehydrator. Right here they are all full and ready to go. As a quick note for anybody who has Nesco dehydrators, similar to this one, the minimum tray amount per load should be 4 trays. And so if I had only gotten 3 trays, I would still be putting a 4th tray in. It's just with the mechanics of the dehydrator, especially if you manage to get yours used at a really good price, you might not have gotten all of the instructions. So I thought I would go ahead and throw that little tidbit out there, but I got 4 trays full, so I'm set and I don't need to add anything else. Here we are out where the dehydrators live in our Arizona room. And so I do have just the full dehydrator there. And I have it set to 125, and I will let it dehydrate as long as it takes. I honestly don't know how long that is going to take. It's probably going to be at least a day because we're dehydrating a whole bunch of the fruit leather sheets. And so I will be coming back out here periodically, like probably tonight I will come and I'll rotate some trays. So the ones on the bottom will go on top, ones on top will go on bottom. And then tomorrow I'll just check on it a couple times. and hopefully we'll have some dehydrated chili pretty soon. All right, it's been about 4 hours and I just came out to check on everything and everything felt super hot. So my dehydrator, I think this Nesco has finally, it might finally have broken for the final time. Adam has fixed it probably about 3 times. He's replaced a little switch or like a little fuse in here. I'm not sure what it is, but it keeps overheating like really bad. It gets really hot. And so it was doing that, and hopefully I didn't get any of the surface hardness. And I'm going to put it on the screen because for whatever reason my brain is just blanking on what the term is. It's the reason you don't want to dehydrate things at too high of a temperature, because the outside will get super hard and crusty and potentially not allow the inside to fully release all of the water and fully dehydrate. So you'll end up with a product that's dry on the outside but still wet on the inside, and that is definitely not what you're going for. But anyway, I am going to go ahead and move these guys over to my Excalibur. I was really hoping to use my Excalibur to dehydrate some stuff at a lower temperature for over the next couple of days, but hopefully this will be done quickly. So basically all I'm going to do is just lift this piece out and put it right onto an Excalibur tray and stick them into my Excalibur, and it should work out just fine. All right, there it goes. And I will check on those in another few hours. Okay, so I mentioned the rotation in the other dehydrator, like moving the trays from the bottom to the top. But in this one, basically for the Excalibur dehydrator, typically what you would do is pull out the whole tray and then rotate the tray 180 degrees in order to more fully dry what's in front, because it kind of dehydrates from the back to the front, so stuff in the back will dehydrate faster than the stuff in the front. And so when you're working with the Excalibur, it's more of a rotation. It's not so much the moving of the trays up and down, although it can be too. But since I have this nice and handy on the fruit roll tray anyway, I'll just go ahead and rotate it like that and then stick it right back in. But I will say that sometimes, depending on how full the dehydrator is, you do end up needing to rotate trays bottom to top, because you'll find the stuff on top will be drier than stuff on the bottom. Maybe because moisture is dripping, or maybe just because it's staying more moist at the bottom. I don't know. Or heat rises. I have no idea. Just know that if you have this thing super packed, like every single tray is really packed with stuff, you might need to go ahead and do a little bit of top to bottom rotation on the Excalibur as well. But anyway, I'll go ahead and just get this started. You saw stuff is already very close to done, but I was feeling around, some of the beans don't feel quite finished, and so I'm going to let this go ahead and just finish overnight. Honestly, with another few hours it might be done, but it's about 9 o'clock and I'm not going to be up in a few hours, so I'll just let it go overnight, and then by the morning it should be 100% done. Next step, after getting everything dehydrated and into your jar, is to just put it somewhere where you're going to see it. Shake it every now and then, like when you think of it. And for the next 2 or 3 days, you're going to be watching for condensation to be forming inside of the jar. This is the dehydrating step. If you're in any groups, this is what's known as conditioning, in case, you know, a lot of people just talk about conditioning and they don't often explain it. So I figured I would explain it for you. And so just for that next 2 or 3 days, you're watching again for that moisture. If you see any condensation develop, then go ahead and stick the whole lot back into the dehydrator and dehydrate for a few more hours, and then repeat the conditioning starting from the beginning. After 2 or 3 days, if you don't see any condensation, then it should be totally fine to go ahead and put up for any kind of storage that you desire. All right, so I now know I got 4.5 cups of dehydrated chili from an original amount that was a little less than 9 cups. And so I just like to measure before and after always to make sure that I can calculate accurate serving sizes from whatever I've dehydrated. Sometimes the reduction is quite dramatic. And sometimes it's kind of like only about half the size. Like this one is not quite as dramatic as some of the ones that I've done on the channel. But it's good to know so that you can accurately calculate how much of your dehydrated food you need to equal a serving. So because it's roughly half the size, I'm not going to, overthink it. I'm just going to take basically a cup of this and know that that makes about 2 cups of rehydrated food. And I think that when I package these up for the more long-term storage, even though we're not planning on storing it super long term, but for something that I'm going to set aside long term for a little bit of an emergency, but we probably will end up using it camping or day tripping or whatever. But I will just do 1 cup because the cups that we have in our bug out bags for cooking over our little stoves, like our fireboxes or nanos or whatever, are 17-ounce cups. And so probably 1 cup of this will be an absolute perfect amount for cooking in one of those little cups. And that's what I'm going to do.
It's like chunky cornflakes.
Well, hopefully that's not what it tastes like. We did 1 cup. And then I'm using I brought like 1.5 cups of water just in case it's 1 cup is not enough. So let's go cook it. All right, so we set up the big firebox with an alcohol burner just for, just to be quick and easy because it's not actually that cool out here. It doesn't feel bad, but we don't necessarily want to be out here waiting for a wood fire to die down before we go inside. It is the first day of fall, but it's Phoenix.
Phoenix fall, yeah.
Looks like it's already rehydrating pretty well. Into a boil a bit. It's looking and smelling quite good. It looks like it rehydrated to roughly the same consistency, but we'll see what Adam thinks.
All right, so it's fully rehydrated. We'll see what it tastes like. Tastes like chili.
Yeah, you just had it for dinner, what, 2 nights ago?
Yeah, I wouldn't know that it was dehydrated, rehydrated.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool, good. And you would say so.
It's 1,000 degrees though. No, I think the texture is a little different. It's I don't know, it's like thicker, I guess.
Yeah.
It was like a little bit more liquid when I had it last time, but it's it's got more of a hearty consistency, I think.
Oh, cool.
So yeah,
awesome. Alrighty, then there we go. Success. So many times I have made that recipe, I always say this would be the perfect recipe to dehydrate, because like I said before, it covers all those bases of being all vegan ingredients, pretty much fat-free and completely oil-free, and it just is a perfect thing to dehydrate. And yet I have never dehydrated that recipe, can you believe it, until now. So I am so grateful to know that it actually does work. Again, the original recipe is going to be linked down below, but really this is something that can work for you, whether whatever your recipe, as long as it meets those criteria. So any kind of usually like whole food plant-based recipes, things like that, you'll probably be able to figure out a way to dehydrate them. Also, Adam genuinely loved the rehydrated chili. He says the next time he goes backpacking, that is what he wants in his backpack to eat. So it's awesome. He actually says he prefers the texture of the rehydrated one to the original. He liked it because it was a lot thicker. You saw the original did have some kind of liquid in it, but the rehydrated one kind of didn't. And honestly, if you added more water, it would. And typically when we eat the original, we do put cornbread in it to kind of thicken it up a bit. But yeah, all of those things are good. But yeah, good. I'm glad he likes it. So anyway, I can't wait to put that stuff into our stash, and I'm looking forward to our next adventure, and we can have some dehydrated homemade chili. So anyway, I hope that that was good and you got something good out of it. And as always, I hope the rest of your day is good and your life stays wonderful. Definitely let me know if you give something like this a try. I'd love to hear from you. Talk to you guys later. Bye.